mynews.studio.
At a summit with oil pumps marking the skyline, nearly 200 nations agreed to phase out the very fuels powering Dubai. Does this signal a real turning point for fossil fuels?
Today is November 12th, 2025. Let's break down what happened at COP28. For the first time, the global climate agreement actually names fossil fuels and sets a path to move away from them. Why does that matter?
Naming fossil fuels directly closes a loophole. Before, countries could sidestep the main issue. Now, nations are committing to accelerate renewables, phase out unabated coal, and reach net zero by 2050. It's a clear signal. Fossil fuels are now front and center in the climate conversation.
But the agreement isn't legally binding, right? So if countries don't follow through, what holds them accountable?
Good question. The main mechanism is the global stocktake, held every 5 years. Countries report their progress publicly. There aren't penalties, but there is transparency and reputational pressure. If a country falls behind, it's out in the open.
So, basically, global peer pressure. But is that really enough to drive action, especially with no formal enforcement?
Historically, peer pressure and scrutiny have pushed countries, especially those needing to maintain their international image or alliances. The agreement also leans on coalitions and forums to keep momentum. Still, you're right, without legal force, it really depends on political will and domestic action.
The agreement talks about a just, orderly, and equitable transition. What does that mean for developing countries, especially those already facing climate disasters?
It recognizes that poorer nations need support. There's a new loss and damage fund set up to channel money to countries hit hardest by climate impacts, like floods, droughts, hurricanes. Plus, there's a call for more climate finance and easier technical support.
But how will the funds actually get to those who need them? Is there a system in place?
The fund structure is still being developed, but the idea is for direct and transparent allocation. Ongoing cooperation and monitoring are meant to ensure resources reach the right places.
Switching gears, tripling renewable capacity and doubling energy efficiency by 2030 sounds ambitious. What does that require on the ground?
It'll take major investments in solar, wind, and grid infrastructure. Countries will need to share technology, especially with those who can't afford it. Technology transfer and capacity building are essential. Without them, some nations just can't reach these targets.
And geopolitically, if fossil fuel demand drops, what happens to oil producers? Who stands to gain from this shift?
Nations investing in renewables could gain new industries and jobs. Fossil fuel producers face declining demand, so there's real incentive to diversify. This could change alliances too. Energy dependencies will shift.
So the effects go beyond the environment. They touch on economies and international politics as well.
Exactly. Every sector is likely to feel the ripple effects. Energy, employment, trade, even security relationships. But again, it all comes down to whether countries actually follow through.
With the world watching and the stakes high, do you see this as the beginning of the end for fossil fuels, or just another commitment on paper?
That's really at the heart of it. The language is stronger than before, but lasting change depends on investment, transparency, and political commitment.
Today, nearly 200 nations agreed to move beyond fossil fuels, aiming for net zero by 2050, with new funds and technical support for vulnerable countries and a system to track progress.
Whether this agreement fulfills its promise will shape economies, alliances, and the climate for decades. All eyes are on what happens next.
Thanks for joining us as we unpacked COP28 and what it could mean for the future of fossil fuels.
Thank you for listening. This episode was powered by mynews.studio. Try it now for free.